I'm here today with Hart Matthews to talk about his new class, How to Start a Homeopathic Consulting Practice. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Hart and then ask him a few questions. Hart Matthews is a 2008 graduate of Caduceus Institute of Classical Homeopathy. He opened his practice as a homeopathic consultant in Durham, North Carolina, shortly after graduating. Having been a writer before studying homeopathy, Hart worked part-time as a copywriter and editor and educational moderator for Whole Health Now for 7 years. He was also an editor and developer of the homeopathic house call Remedy Finder application. Hart has taught advanced case analysis at the Caduceus Institute of Classical Homeopathy since 2017. Welcome, Hart.
Hi there.
I'm excited to hear about your new class, Getting Started in Homeopathic Practice. May I ask you a few questions?
Yeah.
What was your experience in starting a homeopathic practice?
I was fairly unqualified to start a homeopathic practice. I had been apprenticing in someone else's office for 2 years. So that was super helpful in terms of homeopathy. But in terms of general business, being able to run a business, I've I didn't know much, and I failed to do some of the obvious things that one might do, like take a small business class at the local community college, or contact an accountant or an attorney. So that was my practice got started very slowly because of that.
I see. So, what did you find were the most important things to keep in mind when starting a business in general and a homeopathic business in particular?
I think the starting a business in general, having some education or knowledge of the legalities involved, the medical legalities, as well as the business legalities. Do you need a business license? Do you need to get a limited liability corporation? Things like that. Um, and also, the finance end of it, how to handle money, how to take payments, how to do your taxes at the end of the year, how to do a Schedule C, right? To how to do a business, your business income in with your personal taxes, in my case. So general business, I think, pretty much that in terms, and also marketing. I knew how to build a website, but I didn't have anybody to sort of help me, take that any further.
Mm,
So knowing who to ask for help, I would say on the general business end. On the homeopathic end, the patient communications was by far the most has been where I think most of my education has come in over the years.
mm,
I was well educated in finding a remedy for somebody, but I didn't really know what my patients were going to need to know from me. For a long time, I did try sort of general advertising, and people would come to see me who didn't know what homeopathy was, or weren't looking for homeopathy. They were looking for herbs, or they were looking for dietary changes or other lifestyle kinds of things that I really wasn't qualified or practiced in. And so spending the time with people who were interested to find out what they want, and do they know what homeopathy is? Are they okay with homeopathy?
mm.
And knowing then knowing when they come in that they're willing to give it the time that it needs, because of course homeopathy is not always the fastest modality. So things like that. I think that patient communications, and even in the last few years, I've learned new lessons about, for example, posology is always a challenge, right? To get people to take the remedy the way that you would like them to take it. Um,
Mm.
but then when people come back for a follow-up, did they take the remedy at all? Did they take the right remedy? Especially if they had to go get it themselves, it's always good to see the vial and find out, did they take the remedy that you thought they took, and how exactly did they take it?
Mm,
Um, so yeah, things like that. Just generally making it easier for patients to do homeopathy who are not used to doing homeopathy.
mm, good point. What are some of the other topics that you'll be covering in the class?
Um, so we get a bit into specializing in some sort of medical field. I tend to work mostly with people with allergies, eczema, asthma, um, because that happened to be where my own background lay, where I had a fair bit of knowledge already, understood the drugs that were being used, conventional drugs that were being used. And so it was an easy transition for me to do that. A lot of times, as homeopaths, because there's so few homeopaths in the world, we want to be generalists, but
Mm,
for a lot of reasons, finding a specialty, even if we aren't exclusively specialized, can be super helpful.
mhm,
Um, Other things that we go over in the class, clinical tips and tricks, like, for example, asking if your patient took the remedy and which remedy did they take and how often did they take it, et cetera. A thing called diagnostic congruence, which is
mm,
demonstrating to the patient that you understand what they want help with. This is really important in patient communications, and in patient satisfaction. If a patient understands that you understand them, or feels that you understand them to the best of your ability, they're going to be a lot more willing to stay with you when if you need a few months to find the right remedy for them.
mm,
But we also go into more practical things like office setup. The virtual office and the physical office are two different things, and yet, often in the same location. But there's a lot of software to think about. There are, payment systems to think about, scheduling systems, things like that. Online record keepers, electronic health records, which are awfully handy,
mm,
as well as homeopathic software, which of course is a topic of perpetual interest in homeopathic schools.
mhm,
And we, of course, we won't be able to go into hours and hours of discussing different homeopathic software, but we can certainly look at the major ones. And I can give people some hints for what makes good homeopathic software. What do you really need? Because there are certain things you don't just need a repertory.
mhm,
You also need to be able to do research. You might do that in books,
mhm,
but you also need to be able to do research, and you need to be able to manage your patients, which is to say you need to have a place for your notes, and you need to have a place to evaluate prescriptions so that
mm,
you can go back. If you're working with somebody who's been in your care for a long time, you can go back and see what was helpful for them in the past, what was not.
yeah.
So, yeah, uh, amongst other things, but those are a few of the things that we'd be talking about too.
Okay. Are you going to discuss advertising in the class?
Insofar as advertising comes from marketing, yes. Um, Insofar as trying to, if we're talking about, like, specifically how does one advertise, where should I advertise, things like that, is those questions are all very specific to having a business plan, having a marketing plan. And so I can make general recommendations, but marketing itself is what, a 6-month course at a professional business school,
Mm,
and so that's not something that we can really get into in an 18-hour course. But we can talk a bit about things that will help you market yourself effectively, like specializing
mm,
in some sort of type of disease. Um, and also how to talk to people about homeopathy.
Oh,
Um,
great.
and yeah, um, in my personal experience, and part of this is because I was not prepared to go into business when I went into business. My advertising buys have been useless. The money, the many thousands of dollars that I spent on advertising, I found to be pretty much useless. I did not see a return on it. And that, again, is largely because I didn't have someone who knew what they were doing advising me and helping me along. Um, so, and of course, the biggest thing that I've found is just being the best homeopath I can be will get me patients. If
Mm,
I'm able to help somebody, then they're going to mention me to somebody else usually. Sometimes not, but most of the time, having helped somebody, especially having helped someone promptly,
mm.
will tend to get attention from a broader, group of folks. So.
Ah, is there anything else you'd like to tell us about your new class?
Well, some of the other things that we would talk about might include the general legalities around practicing homeopathy. So there are a lot of consent forms, right? You want people to
Right.
understand fully what they're getting into and what they're doing, what you're doing, so as not to get in trouble. Um, and and there are also people who can help you with that. They're called attorneys. Um, and so we also go a little bit into ethics. One of the very useful things that I review once a year when I re-up my North American Society of Homeopaths membership is their code of ethics. And there are a lot of interesting things to think about ethically that I'm not sure that most people think about in school. Like, is it ethical to sell people remedies when you're prescribing those remedies?
Mm,
Things like that. And I would also add that there will be extra reading. There are good marketing textbooks about how to start your own business and have your own kind of brand.
mm.
I can make recommendations for books that people can go to for more information about those kinds of things.
Oh, that's super awesome.
Yeah.
I think that we all would benefit from this class, as students of homeopathy and probably other practitioners as well. So thank you very much, Hart, for
Well,
being
thank
willing to
you.
answer my questions.
Yeah, I appreciate the time. Take care.
You too.